Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at the 10 worst dungeons in The Legend of Zelda. For this list, we'll be showcasing in no particular order the worst dungeons Link has had the misfortune of exploring. Our list may be completely different from yours, so be sure to head to the comments and let us know what you think the worst dungeon in Zelda is.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Inside Jabu-Jabu's belly, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. The Water Temple's legacy of being awful usually overshadows any other bad dungeon from this 3D classic. But inside Jabu-Jabu's belly deserves to have a big, ugly light shone upon it. Firstly, it's filled with beery, annoying jellyfish enemies that electrocute Link. Secondly, it's about as aesthetically unpleasing as you can get, being inside a massive fish. Its most frustrating aspect, however, comes in the form of Ruto, the spoiled Zora princess stuck inside. She turns the dungeon into an obnoxious escort mission, forcing you to carry her around and berating poor Link whenever he has to leave her behind. This dungeon was so annoying that it stopped one of our staff from proceeding further. Way to go, Ruto! You stopped someone from playing one of the greatest games of all time. Ice Palace, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Ice levels almost rival water levels in how they can annoy players to no end. The franchise's first is a blueprint for every irksome ice dungeon that would follow. Most floors are covered in ice, essentially destroying Link's traction. That would be annoying enough while trying to figure out where to go. Rooms are also usually filled with enemies, including the electric beery or traps, which makes taking damage a lot harder to avoid. The Fire Rod or Bombos Medallion makes clearing a room of foes much easier, but you better be prepared to use a lot of magic. If you mess up and have to backtrack, the Ice Palace will make you pay for it, testing your patience while you slide around. Palace of Twilight, The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess. We hear about the Twilight Realm throughout the narrative, but when Link finally goes there, it turns out to be a letdown. While the look of the dungeon is fittingly otherworldly, its layout and gameplay are incredibly basic. The first half revolves around Link carrying light orbs through previously completed rooms as a big hand slowly follows him. The entire process can be a bit tedious, especially with enemies trying to catch you off guard. The second half boils down to a lot of switch hitting and platform riding in between fights. That would be fine for an early dungeon, but is a disappointment for the game's penultimate one. Navigating an alternate dimension we've never seen before shouldn't be this boring. Forsaken Fortress, The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. Link's second visit to Ganon's hideout much later in the game isn't too bad, but his first visit, ooh boy. One of the dungeon's biggest issues comes at the very beginning. Link's sword, which he literally just got, is taken away, and you're forced to stealth your way through. Sneaking requires avoiding spotlights and hiding in barrels from moblins. It's a pretty frustrating lesson in monotony and a poor way to introduce the game's dungeons. As most of the fortress looks very similar, it's also easy to get lost considering you'll likely get captured, have to escape, and lose your place. Zelda usually puts a heavy focus on exploration, and mandatory stealth without a weapon takes that aspect away. Hinox Mine, The Legend of Zelda, Triforce Heroes. Hinox Mine is the worst dungeon in what many believe to be the worst Zelda game, so yeah, it's pretty bad. Most of it is navigated in a minecart and requires the links to hit certain switches or bombs in order to advance. Even played alone, this is an exceptionally dull gameplay loop. There aren't any branching paths to explore other areas, so for every time you miss, you'll ride in a circle waiting for the next opportunity. Since some switches require you to throw bombs at them, necessitating perfect aim, you'll likely do this a lot. The dungeon's boss is also an obnoxious chore, having you throw bombs back and forth on opposing minecarts. Great Bay Temple, The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. The dungeons in Majora's Mask focus on each of Link's forms and their unique abilities. This usually leads to great level design, but the Great Bay Temple is the glaring exception. Most of the dungeon's areas are reached via tunnels that branch from its central room. However, half of them can't be reached until you alter the water's flow. It's difficult to tell which tunnels you've swam down, which can lead to a lot of unnecessary backtracking. But gods help you if you forget something in a room and then alter the flow. It's an incredibly convoluted design that would make any player tense in a regular game, but Majora's 3-day time limit just makes every misstep that much more stressful. Jabu-Jabu's Belly, The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages. Yes, the Zora's big dumb deity has played the role of terrible dungeon twice, and it's honestly hard to decide which one is worse. Similar to the water temple in Ocarina, this dungeon has Link change the water levels to progress, but here, all switches are in the same room. While this may sound convenient on paper, in actuality, it just means you'll be trying to find your way back to this room as you need the levels changed. A certain amount of backtracking in Zelda can sometimes be necessary or even beneficial, but wandering through the same rooms over and over just to hit a switch is an absolute pain. They even kept those stupid electric jellyfish. Divine Beast Va Naboris, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild did a lot to invigorate the franchise. However, one aspect that was seen as a step down by many were the divine beasts in place of standard dungeons. But why Va Naboris? It's more annoying to navigate than others. Its body is a cylinder broken into 3 sections that can be rotated. This makes traversal tough and frequently frustrating should you fall and have to rotate the section again. The trial and error design is irritating, but the creme de la creme of awful is its boss, Thunderblight Ganon. Its electric attacks can make you drop any equipped metal weapon or shield and deal heavy damage unless you had the foresight to make the proper food. I just really hate being electrocuted, okay? Temple of the Ocean King, The Legend of Zelda, Phantom Hourglass. If the Forsaken Fortress is bad, then the Temple of the Ocean King is abysmal. Link returns to this temple multiple times throughout the game. As it's cursed, it will begin to drain his health if the Phantom Hourglass runs out of sand. The time limit would be bad enough, but night-like phantoms also patrol the floors. One swing from these bad boys is all it takes to knock out Link, and you'll lose some sand each time. Unfortunately, there are also phantom eyes that alert the enemies to your presence. Forced stealth on top of a time limit? That's a double whammy of terrible. And you have to visit the temple no less than 4 times throughout the game. Water Temple, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. You all knew it would be here. While some of the hatred is a bit overblown, the Water Temple has a legacy for good reason. Part of it comes from being forced to change between 3 water levels in order to reach new areas. As these points require a few rooms to go through, it can mean a significant amount of backtracking. Another big hindrance on enjoyment are the iron boots. Pause, equip, sync, pause, unequip, float. About 1 million different times. It's enough to drive anyone mad, and it did. Thankfully, the 3DS remake made navigation way easier. The boots were made an item, and color-coded directions took you to each water level point. But as far as the original is concerned, it more than deserves its inclusion.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.